This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you guys into another episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before we get started here today, I want to make sure to remind you guys to subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. If you can, also give us a 5-star rating and a review. It's very helpful. It will allow us to continue to get better, see what you guys like, see what you guys didn't like, and all that good stuff. So if you can do that for us, please, and thank you. And I must say thank you to the NFL, because this weekend provided us with exactly what, if you're a football fan, you would have asked for. I mean, you had 4 games, all of them close, no game decided by more than 8 points. 2 games went to overtime, other 2 games went down to the wire, and like I said, It's what you could ask for, and if this is a precursor of what the rest of the playoffs are going to be, then we're in for some great football for the next couple weeks into February. But first, I wanted to start off with the most recent game that ended, the Philadelphia-Seattle game, and that one played out not too surprising, depending on how you felt about each team going into the game. But before we get started on everything that happened and what went down, I want to say that I do feel bad for the Eagles team, and more specifically for Carson Wentz, as he had spent this entire season and most of the last 4 games, but overall the entire season, kind of trying to dispel a lot of the narratives about him, whether that be his leadership ability, whether that be his ability to elevate the players around him, whether that be his ability to stay healthy, his ability to lead the team to the playoffs. All that stuff he had spent most of the season trying to dispel. He gets into this game, his first playoff game, and 8 snaps in, he's knocked out. I think technically he was hit on his 4th snap on a play that looked like they were trying to set up a screen pass. It got diagnosed and blown up, so then he tried to scramble. And as he's going to the ground, Jadeveon Clowney tries to hit him. He hits him with his head. His head hits the back of Wentz's helmet. His head goes into the ground. He played the rest of that drive, but after that was it for the game and for his season. And it's just unfortunate because, in my opinion, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And you don't ever want to see anybody get hurt, especially not in the playoffs, just because these games are finite. Obviously, they're win or go home. So you want to have the best players out there to provide for the best quality of game. And I do believe that game, not that 100% the Eagles would have won, because, again, they clearly didn't have anyone that could stop DK Metcalf. But the game probably goes a little bit differently, and at least it's closer there at the end, whether it's tied or maybe Seattle needs to drive down the field and score at the end or something. I just think the game would have played out differently had he been healthy, seeing as how it played out with Josh McCown, who hadn't taken any snaps since September. And obviously didn't get any practice with the starters or anything. So yeah, I just wanted to start this by saying that I do feel bad for him, and just he's gonna have to go into another offseason with questions about his durability and all that stuff. And it's just unfortunate. You don't ever want to see players get injured, especially at this stage in the season. So it was unfortunate, but the game itself was still entertaining even without him. The game started off a little slow. So both teams, their opening drives, they both had to punt. 3 and outs, really. They weren't able to move the ball that much. Seattle was able to move the ball a little bit more on the next drive, but they stalled and they had to kick a field goal and it got blocked by Vinny Curry. So again, you're going in 3 possessions in, no points. The Eagles have to go down and punt. This was the last drive for Wentz. The Seahawks get the ball back. They get a field goal. Again, able to move the ball, but it's kind of stalled out. On second and short and third and short, weren't able to get anything going. So they're forced to kick a field goal. Josh McCown's in now. The offense is still kind of sputtering. They punt, and they weren't. The Eagles' offense struggled for most of the day, but especially in the first half, they just couldn't really get anything going on the ground, through the air. It really didn't matter. They only really were able to put together one drive where they were able to get a field goal to help tie it up. But even then, they got the ball. They got the ball down to the the Seahawks 26, and then from there just couldn't really do anything, and they had to kick a field goal. And that's the sad. This is where Wentz could have made a difference, in that he's been a guy, and they've been a team, the Eagles, that have been great in the red zone. So obviously, with him not in there, the red zone offense is worse, and that kind of reared its head in this game, just because the team struggled. With being forced to kick a lot of field goals, especially, and then we'll get into a little bit later that they weren't even able to kick the field goals. They just turned the ball over. But after that field goal, the Seahawks were able to drive down, get a touchdown. Marshawn was able to punch it in from the 5 yards out. That was a very, very strong run. I mean, it's typical beast mode. He runs, gets hit, bounces off of him like the guy's not even there, and gets into the end zone. It was like I said, it's a very typical Marshawn play. But so yeah, the Seahawks go into the half up 10-3, and in a game where you would think they would have been able to be up more, just because they'd had chances to move the ball, they just weren't able to. Like I said, they had the one block field goal, and then they made the other field goal, so they could have been up even more going into half, but they weren't. So then what's it called? The Eagles come out. It's official now, because at halftime it was still Wentz was still questionable, but it come out after half and it's official. McCown's in. So then they got a good drive going to start the half. They got some big plays. They started off with a 32-yard pass to Zach Ertz, and it's like, oh, okay, they're moving. Another pass, and they get a penalty for defensive pass interference, get the ball inside the 20. And then this is another instance where the red zone offense kind of sputtered a little bit. So they get the pass interference. Boston Scott gets a nice run for 15 yards. Then they get delay on the game on 1st and goal, which was big. I mean, this is they're going in to potentially tie the game. You move 5 yards back immediately, and obviously 1st and goal from the 5 is a lot different than 1st and goal from the 10. But they were able to get some yards. Even though they got backed up a little bit. They were able to get some yards. McCown fumbled, got a fumble. He was able to run for it a little bit, and then eventually got sacked on 3rd down trying to run. It's 40, and like he can't move as good as he once could. I mean, obviously he still moved pretty good for a 40-year-old, but he couldn't move as good as he once could, and obviously not as good as Wentz. So again, it's another scenario where some of those sacks that he had to take, and there were a lot of them. The Seahawks, I believe, got 7 sacks on the day, which was obviously the most ever in a game this season. So some of those plays where Wentz maybe was able to escape the pocket or maybe able to break out of that weren't happening today. And then because they only get the field goal, they're down 10-6, and then Seattle drives down and gets their touchdown. I mean, it was a big 53-yard bomb to Metcalf. It looked like maybe it was a little bit of a blown coverage, but regardless, that kind of play was a play that Metcalf had dropped in the previous game. So I know we talked about that game a little bit, but the Seattle had more opportunities to score, and they just weren't able to because of missed throws or drop balls or whatever. But DK didn't drop this one. He catches it, falls, is able to stumble up and get into the end zone, puts the game up 17-6. And from there, you kind of felt like it was out of reach. But the Eagles, as they've shown this season, they weren't going to go away. They were able to drive down the field again on the next drive, get a field goal. But again, another scenario where they get the ball inside the Seattle 20, get it inside the red zone, and then from there can't do anything. And it's just one of those things where Seattle did a very good job of making plays as the team got in the red zone. Like I said, it may have gone a little bit differently with Wentz, but he wasn't out there, obviously, so you can't go back on that now. But yeah, the Seattle's defense definitely showed up when it had to. It gave up yards. It allowed the Eagles to move the ball down the field, but when it had to, it was tough. And then in the end, and at the end of the day, that's what you need to do. You need to show up when it's crunch time, and that's exactly what they did. So they had to kick another field goal. The Eagles did. Then the Eagles were eventually able to get Russell Wilson to punt after a sack. It's their first sack of the game, which I believe that I think we talked. We talked about something last week about podcast, but I think they had like 6 in their first game, and they only had that one against Russell Wilson this time around. So that was a big difference, and that was even kind of shocking just because they were without their starting left guard and left tackle. So you thought they'd be able to get more pressure, but Russ was doing a good job of buying times, moving around, avoiding sacks and stuff. So they got the one sack to force them to punt. Then the next drive again, Eagles go drive down the field. They have a chance there, get it to the Seattle 30. Go backwards a little bit with false starts and sacks and stuff, and then they had the shot on 4th and 4, and the pass is a tough catch because it was a little bit behind Miles Sanders, but it's a catch that I know he thinks he can make, and I know it's a catch that most of the fans thought he could make. Not that it's necessarily his fault, but so yeah, they were able to do that, and then they dropped that pass, and then they turned the ball over again. They were able to get the ball back one more time, had another chance to drive down the field, get near inside the red zone. Again, sacks and bad plays led to the Eagles having to punt, and then the Seahawks were just able to run the clock out after they got it to 3rd and 10, and they just took a shot. I mean, the Eagles dialed up the blitz, they took a shot, and bada bing, bada boom, DK Metcalf is down the field, and he is sealing the game and waving goodbye to Eagles fans at the link. Russell was good, was a lot better than he was in the last time he played them. 18 to 30, 325, and the 1 touchdown, and also 45 yards on the ground as their leading rusher, because they really couldn't. We knew this Eagles run defense was going to be good, but they were exceptional today, as per usual. But they just didn't have any answers for the passing game, which is kind of what I thought. If there's a way to attack the Eagles, it was through the air, and that's exactly what the Seahawks did, and it worked. And especially they had no one big enough, they had no one fast enough to begin with, but they also had no one big enough to match up with DK Metcalf. He had 7 for 160 and a touchdown. One of the best, if not the best, rookie receiving performances as a debut in the history of the NFL playoffs. So that was sensational. But yeah, that was a great game. We have after we come back from a break, I went a little long on this one, but after we get back from the break, I will touch on the rest of the games that happened this weekend. And like I said, there were some great ones. There were some other great ones. This was a great wildcard weekend. And we will touch on the rest of those games right after this.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
We are back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So the other game that went on, you guys listened to this Monday, but I recorded this Sunday. So the other game that went on today was the Saints-Vikings. And that one was a game where that one was definitely one of the more surprising ones of the weekend, just because a lot of people, the Saints were favored by I think like 8 points or whatever. So a lot of people came in thinking the Saints were gonna not they're gonna walk all over them, but they didn't. Most people didn't give the Vikings a shot. I know Mike Zimmer made a point to talk about how they weren't even featured in that NFL promo playoff video. I mean, they redid it because they didn't include the Eagles in it either, but they redid it. Obviously, the Vikings were added in, but that clearly the Vikings players, coaches, organization thought that no one thought they had a chance, and a lot of fans, just casual fans of football, didn't think they had much of a chance. But Kirk got the job done. I mean, he didn't do a whole lot, but he made the plays that he needed to make when he needed to make them, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, he only had 242 yards, just the one touchdown. Dalvin Cook had a great game in 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. Adam Thielen was great, 7 for 129, and he's a guy that they've missed a lot this season due to this hamstring injury. But obviously, when him and Diggs are out there together, they are a duo that is very, very, very tough to stop. And the Saints just, in their own right, couldn't really get stuff going. You knew it was going to be different when the second play of the game, the Vikings fumble, and then the Saints are only able to turn it into a field goal. So you knew that this wasn't going to be the easy game that the Saints might have thought it was going to be. Saints fans and some of the casual fans of football thought it was going to be, just because that Vikings defense is stingy. They're not just going to lay down. Mike Zimmer is a great defensive coach. He's not, outside of the one Eagles playoff game, the NFC Championship, the defense has always shown up. In the playoffs, at least, their offense has usually been the one that kind of holds them back a little bit. But it wasn't going to be easy, and the Saints and Drew Brees saw that as they struggled for most of the half to score points. I mean, they went in to the half down 13-10, and the only touchdown they got in the half was on Alvin Kamara run after a big 50-yard pass played down to the 4-yard line by Taysom Hill. So it wasn't even Drew Brees that was out there getting them down the field. And Taysom Hill was great today, just doing a little bit of everything. Obviously, he had like I said, he had a 50-yard pass. He had 50 yards rushing. He was their leading rusher. He had 2 catches for 25 yards and a touchdown in the second, which he had in the second half. Like, he was there missing everything, which is basically what he has been the whole year. But in this game specifically, when the rest of their offense wasn't really doing a whole lot. I mean, Drew Brees only threw for 208 yards, and they couldn't really get much going on the ground. Like, he was arguably their best offensive player today, which, I mean, is cool, but also, like, the Saints can't really afford to have that happen, because, like, when your best offensive player is your backup tight end, third string quarterback, tight end, fullback, receiver hybrid, like, you're not going to beat too many teams like that. And obviously they weren't able to beat the Vikings in this one, which was unfortunate for the Saints. But yeah, so like I said, they go into the half down 13-10, even though they could have been down more. Oh no, they could have been tied. Let me excuse myself, because Will Lutz missed a field goal, and that could have been crucial there at the end. But the second half starts, teams pump back and forth. The Vikings are able to get a touchdown. This was another Dalvin Cook run. Now they're up 20-10 in the Dome. The Dome fans are surprised. Right after the touchdown, the Saints go 3 and out, but the Vikings weren't able to do anything to capitalize, and then Saints kind of get their offense going a little bit. And they had a next drive, 8 plays, 85 yards. This is where they had the touchdown pass, 20-yard pass to Taysom Hill. Nice little wheel route. It looked like maybe a blown coverage, but he got open, he caught it. Then again, Vikings come back, get the ball, don't really do much with it. And then the Saints get the ball. It looks like they're going to drive down, take the lead. You're just like, everybody's just waiting for it. And then Drew Brees has one of his... No, because he had an interception in this game too, I believe. Yeah, he had an interception earlier, but probably his biggest error of the game, where he got stripped. He was trying to make a play, trying to just kind of throw the ball away, and Daniil Hunter hits his arm. The ball pops out. The Vikings recover. They weren't able to do anything with it, but it was just they were able to waste some time, and then the Saints were able to get the ball back. They drove down the field a little bit, kind of stalled, and they kind of did the weird thing with the clock where they had a penalty, and instead of just taking the timeout, they let 10 seconds run off, which I didn't understand because then you basically just had one play and they weren't even able to do anything with that one play and kick the field goal. So I'm just like, why not just take the timeout? At least you get a shot at the end zone to try to win it as opposed to just settling for overtime. That's what they decided to do. I mean, Sean Payton's a better coach than I am, so I'm not going to tell him what to do. But then you risk the luck of the coin flip, and they didn't get the coin flip. And then the Vikings drive down the field. Kirk's best drive of the game, best drive of his season, probably the best drive of his career. Had a nice deep ball to Thielen for 43 yards down to the 2. And then from there, they kind of stalled a little bit. I thought they tried to run it with Dalvin Cook twice, didn't get in, and I was like, "Oh Lord, are they not gonna score a touchdown here and settle for a field goal?" But then they were able to find Kyler from the back of the end zone, and unfortunately for Saints fans, it could be argued that there was passing interference. It looked like he pushed off. They didn't call it. They didn't review it. I don't know why. Saints fans are going to be angry about that, but their team had many other, just like in the Rams game, the team had many chances to fix the other things throughout the game, and they weren't able to. But yeah, so the Vikings win and they move on and they take on the 49ers, and that was, I mean, if that's not the most surprising game of the weekend, which to me it was, just because I thought the Saints were going to win this one pretty handedly, not like they weren't going to blow them out, but they were going to win it pretty comfortably. If this wasn't the most surprising, then the late game from Saturday, the Titans-Patriots, had to be the most surprising outcome of the weekend, just because of how it went down and just the manner in which the Patriots looked and the way they went out. Just because I thought there was a chance that the Titans could win this game just because of Derrick Henry, and obviously you could say they won the game because they had Derrick Henry, seeing as he had 184 yards on the ground. 182 yards on the ground, excuse me, which is the most Belichick's ever given up in a playoff game. But he was a dynamic birthday boy. Happy belated birthday to him. But he was great. I mean, he had a one drive before the end of the half that got them a touchdown, where he got all 75 of the yards for the Titans. He had a 29-yard run, incomplete pass, 11-yard run, 9-yard run, a 3-yard run, a 22-yard screen pass that he caught, and then a 1-yard touchdown. So he was basically their whole offense, and unfortunately for the Patriots, they could not stop it, and that's kind of tough. And that's what I fear, just because he's just a guy that's built to be in the playoffs. I mean, he's 6'3", 6'4", like almost 250. Like, he's a tough guy to tackle when it's sunny out, but when it gets colder, when it's not as nice out, the weather's it's rainy, it's snowy, whatever, he's a guy that you don't want to have to tackle play after play, and it kind of showed, just because he was able to run for, like I said, 182, average 5 yards a carry, he had the touchdown. And it was just like every time he was getting the ball, it seemed like he was getting, obviously he was getting like 4 or 5 yards a pop, and it was just one of those things where the Patriots just didn't really have an answer for it. Though, I mean, obviously I only gave up 14 points, so it wasn't like they. I mean, the defense only gave up 14 points. Excuse me. So it's not like the Titans were out there doing whatever they wanted to them, and obviously no one gave up any points in the second half, which was the craziest part of it. Just because both defenses were great, whether it's punts, turnovers, whatever. Both defenses were shutting the teams out. But the one thing I did want to touch on was a little manipulation of the rules, if you will, that Mike Vrabel did to try to run some clock out in the fourth quarter, which Belichick had done earlier this year, I believe, was against the Jets. So, if you didn't know the rule, apparently, like if there's a clock's running and you get a false start or a delay a game or whatever, if it's not under 5 minutes in the fourth, if it's not under 5 minutes in the fourth quarter, then the clock will just keep going. So, late in that game, after they were going to put the ball back to the Patriots, after the Patriots' drive had stalled and they had to punt it back to them after they got the one Tannehill misfire of the game. He threw a pass and Deron Harmon picked it off. But so the Patriots don't do anything. They have to punt, and then the Titans get the ball back. And then as they're going to punt, they take a delay of game, which was weird because they were at the New England 36-yard line. Most teams, you could argue, would have went for it, but to each his own. It worked out. They take a delay of game, then you can't take back-to-back delay games as a thing. So on the second one, they just have somebody purposely false start, run more clock out, and then after that, they were going to have to punt because you can't take another penalty. But then New England jumps off sides, and then they were able to waste more clock. So the first penalty was called, I believe, with 6:39, and then they didn't put the ball off until 4:42. They wasted basically almost 2 minutes off the clock. And I mean, Belichick was mad, but it's something that he brought to light. He made a note of. He made a point to do it in a game wherein it didn't really matter. So you can't be mad retroactively when it happens to you. It's just one of those things where, like, if you bring up a loophole and then someone else exploits a loophole against you, I mean, that's just good coaching. In my opinion, you can't be mad at that. That's just one of those things where it's unfortunate for the Patriots where the Titans would be able to manipulate the clock like that, but also at the same time, the Patriots offense wasn't really doing anything all game. Now, it's not to say they couldn't have done more with more time, but it's not like the Patriots were moving the ball up and down the field. I don't have any faith, and I don't know if anyone could have any faith that they would have been able to do more if they had more time. But so they punt the ball back, and then the Patriots proceed to go 4 and out. One of those 4 was on second and 4. They had a bad drop by Julian. I don't mean he had it. He had the first down easy. He just dropped it, and it was unfortunate because it was one of those things where if he catches that, who knows what happens? Basically, like they might have had a shot to at least drive down the field and score, or kick a field goal, score a touchdown, kick a field goal, do something. But unfortunately, they weren't able to. And then the next pass went incomplete, and then they had to punt it back. Then the Titans were held to a punt, but they were able to waste some time off the clock in terms of they ran once, short pass, illegal formation, and then they ran it again. Then Tannehill was able to hit Fisker, the Harvard grad who got the touchdown earlier in the game, and then that took them to the 2-minute warning. So they were able to waste more time there, and then like New England had to start calling timeouts and stuff. But then they eventually had to punt after the Titans just chose to run the ball 3 times, and then first play after that, I mean, they punted with like 15 seconds left, so there wasn't much the Patriots were going to be able to do. But they first play pick 6, Logan Ryan, who had dropped the pick 6 before the end of the half, that could have would have obviously extended the lead for the Titans and given them, and maybe the second half plays differently if they're down 7 or 8 as opposed to down 1. But he didn't. He got redemption. And also, it was cool to get it against his old team, and then like after that, it's over. So we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but I think that pass, that pick 6, could very well be the end of the Patriots dynasty. It's going to be crazy because one of the greatest sports dynasties we've ever seen, but there's at least a good chance it could be over, and I'll explain why later on in this podcast. But the last game, I don't want to miss it. Bills-Texans, another very entertaining game. The Bills were very much in control of this for most of the game. I mean, they were up, 16-0? No, well, they're up 13-0 at half and 16-0 into the second half. And, I mean, they drove down the field that first drive with touch passes. I mean, Josh Allen runs. We had the one run for 40 yards, a little short pass, and then they did like the fake Philly special type of thing where they flipped it to John Brown, he threw it back to Josh Allen and scored, and you're just like, oh wow, are the Bills gonna come in and just like walk all over the Texans? And then I mean the Texans responded with a punt, and you're just like, oh maybe, but then no, unfortunately the Texans often struggled in the first half, but the Bills were much like the Eagles, were a team that just kind of stalled out in the red zone. They got close, and then they got close, and they were able to move the ball, but unfortunately they just weren't able to do anything once they got down there. So they had to kick a couple field goals the rest of the first half, even though twice they got inside the Houston 25, but again, kick field goals. So they take 13-0 lead at half, come out in the second half, the Texans really still aren't able to do much. And then DeAndre Hopkins, after his first catch of the game on the second drive in the second half, fumbles. Trey Wyatt, that was a nice play to knock it out. But then you're just like, oh, wow. Like the Texans really, if the Bills score a touchdown here, it might be over. And again, they drove the ball a little bit, but I mean, they got it inside the Houston 15, but again, just another drive where it kind of just stalled out. Josh Allen took a sack, and then they had to take a field goal. So they're up 16. They're up 16-0, and then Deshaun Watson was like, "All right, come on, guys, get on my back. Get on my back, guys. I'm gonna carry us to this win." And this kind of when it all started. He had the touchdown drive where it was basically all him. He had a couple passes, one to Hopkins, one to Carter. They had a couple runs. And then he had the 20-yard touchdown run, and he ran in the 2-point conversion. So again, this is what I'm saying. This is when Deshaun Watson kind of went in the Superman mode and just like, hey, I'm not gonna let us lose this game, and he didn't. Then not Josh Allen, but the Bills get the ball back, and Josh Allen gets stripped on a third down play, 3rd and 8, fumbles. The Texans recover. You thought, oh man, they're going to be able to tie it up here. They weren't. They were only able to get a field goal on the next drive, but then the Bills come back, go 3-and-out, punt. Then the Texans get the ball. Deshaun Watson has a team, drives them right down the field again. This time a 5-yard touchdown for Carlos Hyde on a pass from Deshaun, and again they get the 2-point conversion to DeAndre. So you're like, okay, the Texans took the lead now, and you're just like, all right, come on, let's see what the Bills can do. They weren't able to do much. They turned the ball over on downs after Josh Allen took an inexplicable sack. I don't know what he was doing. He ran backwards like 20 yards for whatever reason. After he already had an intentional grounding the play before, so after it looked like they got down to Houston 25 and they looked like they were going to do something again. Just another scenario where they kept going backwards, and then I wasn't that mad at this as some other people were, but they tried to kill the clock off. After the Bills called their 3 timeouts, the Texans go for it on 4th and 1. I didn't like this quarterback sneak. Deshaun Watson's not a quarterback sneak kind of quarterback. He's a mobile, slender, athletic kind of guy, but he's not like the big Josh Allen, Carson Wentz type where you can just these guys are 6'5", 230, 240, so you can just have them sneaking at the 1 yard. So they got stuffed on the sneak, and you're just like, I know some people were mad at that decision, but I was all for just, hey, go, you get the first down, the game's over. You don't got to worry about anything. But again, people were like, oh, kick the field goal, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, again, if you get the first down, and they would have got the first down, they ran a better play, in my opinion. So I wasn't that mad at Bill for that. And luckily for the Texans, they didn't end up losing, so they didn't have to answer for that. But again, Josh Allen, so the first play, Josh Allen scrambles. He flips the ball back for some reason. I don't know what he was doing on this play. Josh Allen made a lot of questions. He made a lot of good plays, but he also had a fair share of bad plays. We were just like, what? Like, what are you doing? I really thought he was going to try to throw the game away right there. Luckily, they were able to knock it out of bounds. But it was like, at that point, I'm like, oh my God, the Bills are trying their best to lose this game. But they were able to get close enough to kick a field goal, and they send it to overtime. And then in overtime, both teams, Texans go 3-and-out. Then the Bills get the ball again, are forced to punt after they had a shot. After they were in field goal range, potentially. It would have been a long field, but they were in field goal range. But then the Bills get called for an illegal blindside block on 3rd and 9. It was one of those things where the NFL trying to outlaw people running backwards towards their goal line and blocking people for safety reasons. I get it, but just one of those plays that's been in football forever. And he didn't hit the guy that hard, and 2, it looked like the guy saw him. He kind of braced for it, so it's not like it was a complete blindside, but they still called it. It was unfortunate. Maybe the Bills have a shot to just win the game there, but then they get pushed back 15 yards, 3rd and 24. I mean, incomplete pass. The ball got dropped. It was whatever. And at the punt. And then they had a chance to stop Deshaun Watson. They had a 3rd and 18. For whatever reason, all their guys drop back too far. Duke Johnson gets a little dump off and takes the ball 18 yards. Barely gets the first down. Then the next play then they get a couple more plays, and then on a 2nd and 6, Deshaun Watson looks like he's going to get sacked. He kind of gets spun and hits. He gets spun into a Bills defender, grabs him, spins him, hits him into another Bills defender. But that momentum kind of allows both of the Bills defenders to fall off him and Deshaun to stay up. And I mean, it was one of the best escapes of the year, in my opinion, just because of the magnitude of it. So he was able to get out of that, pulls the normal Deshaun Watson Houdini magic, dump the ball off to Taiwan Jones, I believe he was a guy that hadn't really been in the game much up until that point, but he made the biggest play of the game. Taiwan Jones, 34 yards down to the 10, and then the Texans just kicked a field goal, and they won. And it's unfortunate for the Bills. They had the lead, they blew it, but it's a good win and a much needed win for the Texans, because there were going to be a lot of questions if they weren't able to come back, whether it's Bill O'Brien, Deshaun Watson, DeAndre, whoever. We're going to have a lot of questions. So, like I said, this was a great slate. I do believe that we're going to be in for more good games next week with all the matchups you got. You got Deshaun and Mahomes. Deshaun and Mahomes. You got Russ and Aaron Rodgers matching up again. You got one great running game in the Ravens against another great running game in the Titans. And then you got the Kirk and Jimmy G game, just to see if this one win was going to be enough, or maybe Kirk. I mean, the Vikings are a very talented team. They could make a sneaky NFC Championship run. They weren't just in the NFC Championship game 2 years ago, so not that going to be that surprising. But again, this wildcard weekend was great. We got another great slate of games in the divisional round, which we'll talk about more later in the week. But NFL playoffs got off to a fast start, and while there was I know there were some teams that were surprised and some teams that were definitely disappointed with the results of this game, but it's the playoffs. It's an unfortunate part of it, one and done. Not everybody's going to be happy at the end of it. But speaking of surprise and disappointments, the NBA season is about a third of the way done, and I'm going to talk about some of the teams that I've been both surprised by and disappointed by this season after this break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So the first, I'm going to talk about the teams that have surprised me a little bit this season. And the first team I'm going to start with is the Miami Heat. The Heat are currently, let me double check for you guys and make sure the standings haven't changed too much since due to the games today. But as of when I last checked, they were the 3rd seed. And they are still, and they're still the 3rd seed in the East. Just wanted to double check for you guys. But yeah, they're 3rd seed in the East, and this is a scenario where this was a team that you knew had a good coach. You knew they were going to compete. They were a team that competed last year. They just barely missed the playoffs last year. But it was a situation where Jimmy Butler left his team, decided, nah, what's going on in Philly, I don't want to be a part of it anymore. I'm going to go down to Miami. And a lot of people kind of criticize him for the move because it just, in their minds, it looked like he's just going like, oh, he's taking the money, gonna go live in Miami, live the high life, beaches, warm weather, no state income tax, all that fun stuff. But in reality, he saw a team, saw a coach, saw a franchise that had a mindset much like him, where we're going to give it everything we have every night against every team. That's the issue that he had with some of the Wolves guys. He didn't think they competed as hard. Same thing, not as bad with the Sixers, but it's some things. There was a little bit of chemistry issues that they had that came out a little bit there, where certain guys he didn't feel like worked as hard as some of the other guys, and it just didn't work out for whatever reason. But you have a team like Miami where they have multiple guys that have gone through the G League and been undrafted, that even start for this team in terms of like Kendrick Nunn and Duncan Robinson. You know they're going to give all-out effort every night against every team. And again, you have a great coach in Eric Spoelstra, who's he's won championships, he's been to the playoffs with different kinds of teams, different kind of players. So you knew they were always going to be a tough team. And then obviously you add in a guy like Jimmy, a proven guy, an all-star, a scorer, a closer, and to instill some of that mentality in some of these young guys, and you put them around like-minded young individuals, whether it's the Tyler Heroes who have what people say they have that dog in them, where they're gonna fight, they're gonna scrap, and they're never out of it, they're never gonna give up, they're always gonna believe in themselves, things like that. And then you have guys like I said, Kendrick Nunn, Duncan Robinson step up, and then next thing you know, boom, you're third seed in the East. And I mean, they're one of the best. I mean, in part because of Duncan Robinson, definitely. I think Duncan Robinson shooting like 45% from three this year or something crazy like that. Like he's been, I mean, he lit it up in the summer league. I remember their summer league team was amazing. And you're just like, who are these guys? But then you're just like, oh, okay, well, summer league, that kind of stuff doesn't always carry over. Nope, it carried over for the Heat. But yeah, I want to double check. Yeah, Duncan Robinson is shooting 45.6% from the field, from three, 48% from the field. And they're one of the best 3-point teams in the league. Like I said, in part because of Duncan Robinson, Hero shooting like 37, 38%, Olenek shooting 41%, Miles Leonard shooting like 45%. They're shooting like 37.6% as a team. So when you have guys like that, and then you mix in that intensity, that tenacity on the other end with guys like I said, with Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, who if not for like Devontae Graham and with the Hornets, or like Brandon Ingram, or even Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who we will touch on in just a moment here, might be the leading candidate for most improved player. He's taken that big step, and he's been amazing again on both sides of the ball. I mean, well, on the both sides of the ball, not football, both ends of the floor. He's upped his points by almost double them. He averaged 8.9 last year. He's at 15.5 this year. He's averaging more blocks, more assists, more rebounds. His free throw percentage is down a little bit, but his field goal percentage is up on, say, at 57. He's shooting 4 more shots a game, playing 11 more minutes. So he's like I said, he's taking that leap that you would want to see from a guy in his third year. And he's as if obviously the team would have been good wouldn't have been as good, but it still would have been a tough team, a scrappy team without Jimmy. But obviously adding a guy like Jimmy, pairing him with guys like Bam and Nunn and Duncan and Tyler Hero has been great. And you just wanted, I mean, it's still earliest in the season. Like I said, they're 35. I think they're 25-10. So 35 games in, not exactly at the halfway point. I want to see if they can continue this through the rest of the All-Star break, and then obviously in the second half of the year. But as of right now, like the Rockets are not the Rockets. The Heat are definitely one of the surprising teams in my opinion in the league this year. Another team that surprised me a little bit, as I touched on just a couple seconds ago or a couple minutes ago, was the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they're a team that it was interesting because like obviously they made the playoffs last year, but then they trade away Paul George, they trade away Russell Westbrook, they get back Chris Paul, Shea, Danilo, they still have Dennis Schroeder, Steven Adams, guys like that, and you're just like, okay, everyone's like, oh, this is a tanking year, they're going to tank. Is how much is Chris Paul going to care? How much is Danilo going to care? And obviously right now they're still on the Thunder, so they care a whole lot. Now this is a team that could very well drop off a little bit if they trade, whether it's Steven Adams, Dennis Schroeder, Danilo, even Chris Paul maybe. Like if they trade some of their guys, like the team can go a little bit differently. But right now they're 7th in the West. They're 20-15. I believe they're like I think they're like 4 or 5 games up on the next highest. They're 5.5. I think my math's right. 5.5 games up on the 8th seed in the West. So they are very comfortable. They have to have a big fall off, and one of the biggest reasons for their success, in my opinion, has been the play of their 3 main guards. Shea, again, like I said, he's a most improved candidate. Definitely has taken that jump up this year that you would hope for with more opportunity. Obviously, he was a different role last year on a different team, but this year he's improved his game quite a bit. He obviously has more duties, and everything, but he's a leading scorer, averaging 19.9 this year, up from the 10.8 last year. He's averaging a little bit less assists, because they don't have the ball as much, because Chris Paul is out there running the offense, or they have Schroeder out there, but he's averaging 5 rebounds, shooting 46% from the field, shooting twice as many shots. And yeah, so he's just taking that leap that you, like I said, you would hope for in a young guy going up in the second year. And again, he has a great mentor too. As much as people kind of malign Chris Paul, he's clearly been a great guy for some of these younger guys on the team, whether it's Shea or Schroeder or even helping Steven Adams with like the pick and roll stuff. Like he's clearly been great. And then on top of that, obviously the 3 guards have been good: Chris, Dennis, and Shea. But they're also great in the clutch, and I think that's been the biggest thing. Now that may return back to the mean a little bit, but they have multiple 20-point comebacks this year. They have multiple 15-point comebacks this year. I mean, it had 20-point comebacks in back-to-back games not that long ago. Like, it's just one of those things where there's a team that no matter how much they're down by, they're never really out of it, which is a scary thing, because whenever you have that sense where you feel like you can always come back and you're never out of a game, that's tough. Because you can see teams sometimes they get up and they kind of just like lull. The offense kind of stalls out a little bit. They allow the team to get back in, but against a team like OKC that can score when they're on and then also can defend at a pretty good level, it makes it easier for them to come back, and that's clearly what they've shown this year. And Chris Paul has been exceptional in the clutch. He leads the league in clutch points, which if you didn't know is within the last 5 minutes of the game when the game's within 5 points. And like I said, he's been great in the clutch. He's been essentially their closer in that, like when they need a big shot, they need a big bucket late in the game, he's usually the guy that they go to, and he's delivered most of the year. Like I said, that could regress back to the mean, but for right now it hasn't. And because of that, they're 5 games over 500. They've won, 5 in a row? Yeah, they've won 4 in a row, excuse me. Yeah, one including Saturday. They've won 4 in a row. They've won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 7 of their last 9, 7 of their last 10, something like that. They've been playing really well recently. Long story short, they've been playing really well recently, and again, if they can keep that up, they'll be in good shape. And the last team that's been a surprise this year for me has been the Raptors. Obviously, they were a good team already. They won the finals last year, so they're not going to be a bad team. But everybody thought when they lost Kawhi, it was like, oh, okay, how much of a step back is this team going to take? And they really haven't taken that much of a step back, partly because early in the year, Pascal Siakam was playing like an MVP candidate, which, I mean, if you watch the finals, not that surprising. There were quite a few games where he was the best offensive player, at least, on the Raptors, and that's on a team that had Kawhi, Kyle Lowry, and Van Vliet, so guys like that. But right now they're 4th in the East, and that's with Siakam missing, because they've played 36 games. I think he's missed like 9. Yeah, he's missed like 9 games. So that's without him. They've been without Marc Gasol for periods. They've been without Serge for periods. So they're doing this with, obviously they've had Lowry, they've had Van Vliet who's taken a nice step. They got OG back, Anunoby, which is big for them this year. Having lost Kawhi, they needed that guy to be that kind of defender, 3-point shooter type. And then they're getting key contributions from guys like Chris Boucher, who was a G League bounce around, who's been with the Warriors, been with the Raptors for a couple of years. And he's been very helpful, giving them good minutes. Terrence Davis, the undrafted rookie who signed with them off their G League, off their summer league, he's been good for them. And it's just, Nick Nurse is obviously a great coach. They've been out without Norman Powell too, so Nick Nurse has just found a way to, with the guys he has out there, just be able to maintain, really. And that's just one of those things where everybody's going to go through injury spurts throughout the season, so you can't just like completely tank. Or at least if you're a good team, you don't normally want to completely tank if you have injuries, and the Raptors have been a team that has been able to withstand those injuries, at least as of right now, very well. Now, we'll see how long it holds up. It's only 36 games into the season for them, so still a lot of basketball left to be played. But as of right now, the they're not. Are they the best team in the league? No, but having dealt with the injuries they've dealt with, and also having to replace Kawhi and his production, which is a big part. And I mean, they were good without him last year through all the load management stuff. So again, this shouldn't be too surprising. But just as I didn't, like I said, I thought they were going to be a playoff team. I didn't think they were going to be top 4 seed in the West, at least not this year, just because. As I said, you have older guys. I didn't really know. You weren't really sure how Fred VanVleet was going to look as a full-time starter. You didn't know if Pascal was going to take that next step. And basically, anything that people question about the Raptors coming into the season, they've answered resoundingly. So that's why I had to add them onto my list as my top 3 biggest surprises in the league so far. So, OKC, Raptors, Heat, those are my 3 biggest surprises. And after this break, when we come back, I will give you my 3 biggest disappointments so far this year. So, like I said, we'll touch on that right after this.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. So my first disappointment, in my opinion, this is a team that, obviously, were they good last year? No. But did I think they were going to at least be a little bit better, a little bit more competitive this year? Yes. And that would be the Hawks. Now, I say that because, well, I say that and I don't mean this as a Trae Young, because Trae Young has been great this year. But that's the problem. It's just been him. There are many nights where he's out there doing everything again, getting 30, 40 points a night, and the rest of the team is just providing them with nothing. And that's kind of been the issue. Obviously, they had the suspension with John Collins, which leads to part of their disappointment, because getting suspended 25 games for PEDs is not beneficial to anybody. But the worst part about it is that they have the worst record in the league currently. Like, they're worse than the Knicks, worse than the Cavs, who are in the midst of like a Kevin Love mutiny almost, just because he's trying to get out of there. They're worse than the Warriors, who are actively tanking without trying to tank, just because like Clay's already out. They basically shut down Steph for the year with the broken hand, I believe it was. He only played like 3 games. They already said like, he's basically not coming back, because it was like, what's the point? Draymond's been in and out of the lineup. D'Lo hasn't always been there. They're playing a bunch of young guys, a bunch of guys who didn't really expect to get a lot of playing time this year. And again, the Hawks have a worse record than them. Have a worse record than the Pelicans, who have had their own struggles this year and are without Zion. Worse than the Wizards. Worse than the Hornets, who everybody thought was going to be one of the worst teams in the league. I mean, the Hornets are only 2 games out of a playoff spot, which, I mean, I don't know what that says. I don't know if that says more about the Hornets than it does about the rest of the East, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, the Hawks are currently set at 8-28. Obviously not 23 games back of the first place Bucks, but I mean, who really cares about that? They only score on 107 points a game. They're giving up 117, which is the second most in the East, only behind the Wizards, who again, not great. It's the only second most in the league. Second worst in the league. Their point differential is abysmal, the worst point differential in the league. They're 2-10, 2-8 in their last 10 games. Just one of those things where it's like, everyone who you hoped and thought could be good and a contributor to the team this year hasn't been. Like I said, outside of Trae Young, who's averaging 28 points, 8 assists. He's been great. That's why he's leading the guards and all-star votes for the East. One of the few things fans got right. Which they touched on last podcast. They don't really, they like to play around with that kind of stuff. But they didn't play around with Trae Young. I'm happy he was able to get that recognition. But again, so John Collins has played 10 games. He's averaging 18. But the only other person that's averaging at least 15 points is Jabari Parker for his team. Like, Hunter is only averaging 12. I mean, he's a rookie, but you kind of hope for a guy who's going to get a lot of minutes, who's going to start basically every game this year. You'd hope he could be a little higher than that. Herter's only at 11, and he's missed some time, so he's in and out of the lineup. But again, you'd hope he'd be a little bit better. He's only shooting 35% from 3. Herter is 40% from the field. Hunter's 40% from the field, 34% from 3. Cam Reddish has been a disaster so far. I mean, obviously he's still young. He has a chance to turn that around, but again, he was a guy that a lot of people thought was arguably the best player coming out of high school 2 years ago, and obviously they thought he was kind of miscast. He didn't even get the ball a lot, and at Duke with Zion and RJ there. So you're like, all right, Cam, going to go on a good team, a young team, not really going to have that kind of pressure on him. Hopefully he can be good, and as of right now, he hasn't been. Like, again, that doesn't mean he can't be good, but as of right now, as of the time I am making, I am listing off my biggest disappointments in the NBA. He is not good, shooting 31% from the field and 26% from 3, only averaging 8 points a game. So it's just like, outside of Trae Young, everybody who you thought could be decent for the team has been bad. So, and because they've been bad, the team has been bad, and because of that, they have the worst record in the league, worse than teams that people thought had a chance to be some of the worst in NBA history. So, they have to get thrown on there. Not like get thrown on there, but they have to get placed on there. Another team that's on my disappointment list is the Blazers, who, I mean, could be worse. They started off pretty bad. They've gotten better recently with the acquisition of Melo. But their biggest issue is that they just can't beat. Well, the biggest issue is that they're missing some players. Obviously, Nurkic still hasn't come back from his injury. Zach Collins has been out. So they're missing a lot of their size. They basically just have Whiteside, and I don't know how good Whiteside is. I don't know if you guys know how good Whiteside is, but like, I don't think he's that good. And he hasn't really been that great for them this year. He hasn't really helped out too much. They added Melo, who helped a little bit with their offense, but it hasn't really changed anything on the defensive end for them. And they currently sit at 10th in the West, a half a game back of 8th place, which again is cool, but they're 6 games back of 7th place, so that just means that the rest of the bottom of the West is very, very bad. They're giving up 114 a game. It's going 112, which isn't that bad, but the defense is the issue, and it has been the issue, and was already an issue coming to the year where they lost Mo Harkless and Al-Farouq Amino. They're probably their 2 best defenders on the wing, kind of helped cover for some of the, I don't want to say lapses, but some of the deficiencies that Dame and CJ had, and now that you don't have them, now it's just Dame and CJ out there with their deficiencies, and that's kind of not helping. They lost Rodney Hood to the Achilles earlier this year, who was going to be a helpful piece for them, but again, they were bad with him earlier in the year. And like I said, they have no real big guys, and then they struggle against good teams. They are, I believe, 13-3 against teams with above 500 record, and that, I mean, tells a story right there. If all you can do is beat up on bad teams when you're a bad team, then you're not going to be that good, because the good teams, the playoff caliber teams, they don't only beat up on good teams, but they have to they don't only beat up on bad teams, I should say, but they win games against good teams too, and the Blazers can't seem to do that this year, and hence why they're struggling. And that's why they're disappointed, because they were, I think they finished as the 3 seed last year, went to the Western Conference Finals. I mean, they got blown off the floor. I mean, I don't want to say that, because they led in every one of those games by at least double digits. They just couldn't close. But you're just like, all right, you didn't think they were going to take this far of a drop, and obviously, like I said, losing some players, still having Nurkic out, Zach Collins being out, Rodney Hood getting hurt. Does that make the team worse? Obviously, but that doesn't make them 10th place in the West worse. That's kind of then that's where they're at right now. And again, like I said, Melo has helped them a little bit in scoring, but again, he wasn't going to help them on the defensive end. That was their biggest problem. So there are issues that they had before he got there are still there after he got there. They just are a little bit more entertaining because they could have Melo score 26 points in the Garden and it'd be cool, but then they lose by like 20 to the Knicks. So is it worth it? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's the Blazers. But yeah, they're a team they're talking about like trading CJ really, because you can't trade Dame. He's the guy. But trading CJ, seeing what they can get for him, just kind of stuff like that. And I'm just like, that's not how they plan to have the season go. It's unfortunate, but that's kind of where they're at right now. And the last team, who's actually like they haven't been a bad team this year, but they've just been a disappointment in the eyes of where people think they could be, and that's the Sixers. They are currently 5th in the East. They're in the midst of what? They're 3-7 in the last 10 games, lost 4 in a row. Like I said, they're 5th. They're a game and a half back of the 4 seed Raptors, 9 games back of the 1 seed Bucks, who again they beat pretty handedly on Christmas Day. So if you're just like, all right, you thought they'd turn the corner, nope. That lie detector determined that was a lie. And they've had their issues in the past, but they just have more issues now. They're taking shots at each other. They're talking about Embiid's talking about the paint's getting crowded around him, which is true. He's talking about people need to step outside their comfort zone, aka Ben Simmons, shoot the ball, like please, like just take 1-3, like at all, like just shoot, like it doesn't matter if you miss, just shoot. And I think that's kind of where some of the frustration lies, just that Ben has it. He still has his nights where he's great. He's scoring and rebounding and assisting and pushing the pace, doing all that fun stuff, but he's just like the improvement that you would like to see at this point through his career, especially after getting the big money, is not really there. So, and no one expects him to be like Steph Curry or Joe Harris or anybody like that from 3, but just like shoot the ball so they don't guard you like you tried to guard Russell Westbrook the other night. I'm just leaving him open for the shot. Like the Celtics were the first team to do that, I think, a couple years ago in the playoffs, and that kind of shut off their whole offense. And other teams were like, oh, okay, Ben Simmons isn't going to shoot the ball if you leave him wide open. Cool, we'll just leave him wide open. And then they left him wide open, and Ben Simmons still isn't shooting the ball, and it's just like, come on, man. I think that's the part of the issue, is that like their team just hasn't really clicked yet. It's still early-ish in the season. Like I said, they're not even 40 games through. They still have time to fix some things, but just the way that their team's currently constructed, they need perimeter shooting. They need another guy to handle the ball, because if your primary ball handler is a guy that isn't going to shoot, that's kind of going to be a problem. Al Horford hasn't been great. He was supposed to help space the floor a little bit. He's shooting 33% from the field from 3 this year. Josh Richardson's only shooting 35%. Tobias Harris shooting 34%, and Embiid shooting 33%. Like, they really struggle shooting the ball. Like, they don't really have too many guys that can consistently hit the 3, and that's like their biggest issue, because at least the last couple years they had JJ, who at least, if he wasn't doing anything else, he was at least shooting the ball well, and now they don't even have anybody that can do that, and that's damaging the team, because now there's a lack of spacing, and Embiid's getting the ball in the post, and he's getting doubled, and then he kicks it out, and it's like, who am I kicking it out to, because no one around me can shoot. So, again, all these teams that are my surprises have time to come back to the mean, dip a little bit. All the teams that are disappointments have times to rise up. The Hawks aren't going to make the playoffs, but at least they could be like more respectable. The Blazers still have a chance, and the Sixers are going to make the playoffs, but it's just like they need to. They're supposed to be they're supposed to have the best starting 5 in the East, in the league, but potentially, depending on who you asked at that point. But definitely at least in the East, and they don't even have that right now. So. Yeah, let's see if the Sixers can turn it around. Like I said, still time. They still got a gel. It's still the first year, but again, they're another team that people are talking about trades. It's like, can Ben and Embiid work together? And like, I think they can, but again, a part of it stems from Ben Simmons being willing to at least shoot a jumper. They don't got to make it. No one's asking you to make 30, 40. If you make 30, that'd be nice, but no, not asking you to make 40% of your threes or anything, but just like, shoot the ball to keep the defense on it, so they can't just like guard you from the free throw line down. I get it. You're 6'10", you can drive, you can do whatever, but That's not a respect. That's not an efficient way to run offense. And between you and me, I think he is right-handed, but he's shooting with his left hand for now, and he won't change. At least not. It's too late in the season. He's not going to do it. But I know Tristan Thompson did it. He finishes when he drives. Finishes a lot with his right hand. He's very good with his right hand around the basket. So I think he's shooting with the wrong hand. But hey, I'm not going to. Ben Simmons knows better than me. Which is the correct hand for him to shoot with. I'm just saying he seems very dominant with his right hand, except when he shoots a jumper. And his jumper isn't working right now, so maybe it's worth a shot. But again, that's the off-season thing. So, yep, those are my 3 disappointments. And speaking of disappointments, the Cowboys were a disappointment this year, but they finally got rid of their coach, which you think would be a good thing. But I'm going to tell you if I think that job is really worth what people think it is, and is that a job that I would be after if I were NFL head coaching candidate. And we will get to that right after this.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
We are back here once again on the GSMC Sports Podcast. So as I said, as of today, recording this on Sunday, it is official. Jason Garrett has been let go from the Cowboys. His tenure is done. Even though it sounded like he was trying to plead his case to keep his job, I understand it's a good job. You've been around the organization for a long time. Between your playing and coaching days, you know the organization, you know the team. You've won decently enough. Obviously, you haven't won enough playoff games, but they've won division enough times. They've been good. They've been good, especially on even number years. They've been good recently, so you would think, all right, next year's an even number year. I'll be able to turn the thing around. But it seems like Jerry, Steven, everybody is just kind of decided it had run its course, so they are moving on and moving in a different direction. They had Mike McCarthy in for an interview already. I believe he had the... Yeah, I think that happened this weekend, which was funny because Jason Garrett technically hadn't been fired yet. So it was weird that they were interviewing people while also like having Jason Garrett still in that position and not really letting him know what was going to happen with him. But yeah, they had Mike McCarthy, and I believe they've also interviewed Marvin Lewis again, and those are scenarios where I think those are hires that on paper aren't that bad, because I guess this is where I'm trying to get into, just like how good is this job really? Because in my in your head on paper it's like, oh, it's the Cowboys. Oh, you're in like a prime location. You're in a division that people want to talk about. You got a good team. You got a good facility. You got a good stadium. All that stuff, and you're just like, all right, yeah, no. If I'm a coaching candidate out there, I definitely want this job. But then you look at it and you peel the layers back a little bit, and you're just like, all right. So the team is run by the owner, who's also the GM. The owner / GM does post-game interviews every game. No other owner does that. He does weekly radio spots, talks to the media multiple times throughout the week. No other owner does that. And like I said, he's the GM and the owner. So, and I mean, he has taken least with Jason Garrett and with other coaches he has tried to undercut their power, so players sometimes go around the coach and talk directly to him, because again, he's the one that technically makes all the decisions, writes all the checks, decides who's on the team, who's not on the team. So it's like, if that is the case, is that something that I would want to deal with? Either A, if I'm an established coach in the league, like a Mike McCarthy, who again, if you're like him or like a Marvin Lewis, you're just like hoping for a job. You've been out of the league for a little bit. Mike McCarthy only for a year, Marvin Lewis for a little bit. No, wait, has he only been out of the league for a year too? Oh yeah, he might have been. I don't know. Both of them haven't been out of the league for that long, but they're looking for another head coaching gig. And it's like, all right, you got a good team, good roster. Well, you got to resign the guys, and that's another con for the position, is that Dak. So you got to do you believe in Dak? Not everybody does. So you have to be a guy that if you believe in Dak, all right, then you got to pay him or franchise tag him or whatever. And if you don't believe in Dak, then you need a new quarterback, and that's not really going to work because this is a win-now situation. Amari Cooper's a free agent. Byron Jones, your best corner, is a free agent. Leighton Vander Esch has a neck injury, and you hope he's fine. You don't really know. The guy is going to assume and hope he can be good next year, but the necks are very tricky, especially in football where you need your neck to you need your head and neck to see and tackle and all that fun stuff. So that's kind of a big deal because he's their best cover linebacker and just got drafted 2 years ago. You got a guy in Tyron Smith who's getting older. I mean, their whole line's outside of Leo Collins and their right guard, Connor Williams, who, I mean, wasn't that good this year and hasn't been that good since I drafted him, but he's young, so there's that. But yeah, the line's getting old. Tyron Smith has had struggle with injuries the past 3 years now. Travis Frederick just had to miss a whole year due to a rare disease. And Zach Martin's been great, but again, he's getting old. You don't ever know when the decline's going to hit. And then on the defense side of the ball, you got guys that are free agents in Michael Bennett, Robert Quinn. So you don't really know what to do there. Jeff Heath's going to be a free agent. I mean, whether you want to resign him or not is on you. So you may need another safety. They tried to trade for Jamal Adams during the year. May need to do that again, but then you do that. You don't have any first-round picks. And, I mean, you could just draft like a Grant Delpit or somebody, or Xavier McKinney. Yeah, see, is it worth it? And then once you do sign him, he's then going to be entering his fourth year, so he's going to need to get paid. So, yeah. Is it worth it? Yeah, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Depending on who you ask. But, so you got to deal with that. Like I said, I think Sean Lee's like deciding if he wants to retire or come back or not come back, whatever. Jason Witten, even though he shouldn't have been playing that much because Blake Jarwin was better than him, but the Cowboys didn't make good decisions in terms of their offensive personnel this year. So you may have a tight end, you may not, depending on how you feel about Blake Jarwin. Receiver-wise, like I said, Amar is already out. Randall Cobb's a free agent. So while they have some pieces, they also have a lot of pieces they either need to A, bring back, or B, go out and get. And it's just like, this is a team that's supposed to win now, but they're going to have to replace a bunch of the pieces because they paid guys. So then now they can't pay other guys because you can't pay everybody because that's the way salary cap works. And it's just like, if I'm either A, an experienced coach, do I really want to feel like dealing with Jason Garrett? Like, do I want an NFL job that bad? And maybe Mike McCarthy and Marvin Lewis do. And B, if I'm a young coach, like a college coach or like a former coordinator, or like if I'm a Matt Rule or an Urban Meyer or Lincoln Riley, is this the first job? Or even if I'm just like a coordinator, like a Eric Bieniemy from the Chiefs, or like a Wink Martindale, or like Kevin Stefanski from the Vikings. Like, if I'm one of those guys, is my first head coaching job? Am I going to want the pressure and scrutiny and all the eyes on me that's going to come with being the Cowboys coach? And some people might. Some people are built for that. The same thing with like playing in New York. Not everybody's built for it. So you need a guy that's built for it, and you need a guy that's willing and able to succeed power to Jerry Jones, because again, he is the face of the franchise. As much as they want to say maybe Dak or maybe Zeke or it's DeMarcus Lawrence or whoever, the first thing you think about with the Cowboys most of the time is Jerry Jones. And because of that, that can be difficult for the coach, because it's like, how much say and how much power do you really have? And I mean, that's a completely fair question, because like I said, if the owner is the de facto, well, not the de facto, he's literally the GM, and he said on record he doesn't know how many years he has left, in terms of how long he's going to be. I mean, he's getting older a little bit, so he's trying to win a Super Bowl as soon as he can. And it's like, if he doesn't know how long he's going to be around, and you don't know either A, what the plan is going to be after him, or B, how I can't think of the right word, but just how rash he's going to be with his decision in terms of if they come out and struggle next year with the new head coach, is he just going to fire you? Is he going to fire you? That's kind of a situation you have to think about when you're going into the Cowboys, where most of these other jobs, you're going into bad teams. You might probably going to have a year, unless you're the Browns, who again have their own issues. But unless you're going to the Browns, you're going to have at least 2 years to show them something. Now, you may end up like Pat Shermer, where you're going to get fired regardless because you haven't really shown anything. 9-23. It doesn't exactly exude the head coaching confidence that you may want. But you're going to at least get a year or two to figure things out. And that's what I'm saying with a team like the Cowboys in a division that doesn't ever repeat as winners. So you can't just assume the Eagles are going to be back next year, even though they're going to have they should get some of the guys back from injury and should have better injury luck. You don't know how good the division's always open. Like I said, they haven't had a repeat winner since I think 03, 04, somewhere around there. So this is a division that's always up for grabs every year. So in that scenario, Jerry Jones is going to think and going to say and going to believe that they can win it next year, and then again you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. So if you don't do that, or you get to the playoffs and you lose in the wildcard round and the divisional round, how happy is that going to make Jerry? So again, this is all stuff that, again, on paper, the Cowboys' job, America's team, blah, 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 should be a great opportunity. But, as I said, as you peel back the layers, it's is this a job that people will really want to take? And I don't know if it's a job that someone that isn't completely desperate may be again, that's why you interview Mike McCarthy or Marvin Lewis, because they may just want to get back into the NFL. They don't really care. And also, I said they also was talking about they were trying to get Mike Zimmer, but I'm I don't know why the Vikings would fire him. And again, he won't beat the Saints, so I don't think he's going anywhere. But it's just who's going to want to have to deal with the way the organization is structured? Is it going to be an experienced coach that knows what it's like to have that may know what it's like to have a bad front office, may know what it's like to have a good front office, and may not like the way the Cowboys are done? Is it an inexperienced head coach that doesn't really know any better, but is trying to make a name for himself? But then, like I said, if you struggle here and you don't, and you it's just maybe you don't really get another shot. So it's who's gonna want this job? And again, on paper it looks great, but then when you look at it, just what kind of coaching candidate would want to take this job? Because not everybody's gonna be Jason Garrett, where you can stay around for 10 years just because you don't really cause any issues with the owner. That's not gonna happen. Not everybody Jason Garrett. Not everybody's going to be cool with the way the organization is structured, just be happy just doing whatever, and then the owner saying and basically calling for your job middle of the season, even though he's not going to fire you after you lose the division. I mean, he technically didn't get fired, but he didn't get fired during the season. Even though he basically publicly said after the Patriots game that they needed to fix this, or Jason Garrett was going to get fired, in less words. And I'm is that something you don't want to deal with? Every loss, the owner's going to be talking about what they could have done, what they should have done, blah, blah, blah. Is that something that, what coach is going to want to deal with that? And then again, once Jerry Jones moves on, maybe he succeeds to his son Steve, and how's Steve going to run? Is he going to do it with the GM? And then now you're in year 2, year 3 as a head coach, and then bringing in a new GM that may not think you're that good of a coach, and you got to deal with all that. It's just you just don't know. There's so many unknowns on the Cowboys, again, starting with who even's going to be on the roster next year. There's so many unknowns with them, from the roster to the way the teams run, all that stuff is just who's going to want this job? And that's why I think, as crazy as it sounds, I don't think this job is as popular as many people would perceive it to be, just from the outside looking in, because of a lot of those outside factors in that. So that is my personal opinion. We'll see how it plays out, see who gets the job. Like I said, it obviously won't be Jason Garrett anymore, but we'll see who does end up getting that job, because, again, still a prominent job in the NFL, still a marquee franchise, so people are going to want it, but it would be interesting to see who ends up taking it and how they work, because, again, just because it looks great on paper does not mean it's going to work out. I mean, a lot of people thought Hugh Jackson and Adam Gase and all those other people were going to be good head coaches, and Hasn't worked out, and a lot of people thought Doug Peterson was going to be terrible, and he won a Super Bowl and has been to the playoffs 3 out of the last 4 years. So, just because on paper it looks good does not mean it's actually going to work out. So, we'll see how that one goes. So, that brings us to the end of an era in Dallas, with the Jason Garrett tenure finally ending, and there's another end to an era, I believe, that we may have just seen as of Saturday night. And you guys probably know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, we will talk about it right after the break.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
We are back here once again on the GSMC Sports Podcast. So, if you didn't know what I'm talking about, I am talking about the possible, and I'm not saying anything's found again, I would never be that definitive, because you never know, but the possible end to the Patriots dynasty. Their 20-year run of dominance over the NFL may very well have ended on a fateful Saturday night in Foxborough, where they lost to the Titans 14-13 in the wildcard round. After losing the week before to Ryan Fitzpatrick to even be in the wildcard round, because if they win, they get a bye, and then who knows what happens. But that didn't happen. They lost. Tom Brady's a free agent. Josh McDaniels is taking head coaching interviews. And there's just a lot of uncertainty currently in New England that hasn't been there recently. Now, at the very least, it sounds like Tom Brady isn't going to retire or isn't ready to retire just yet. So, at the very least, there's a chance at least he could come back. Because if there was... So, it's not like you just know for a fact he's not going to be there. But, again, he's a free agent. He can go anywhere. If Josh McDaniels leaves, could he follow him to wherever he goes? I mean, he's not going to follow him to Cleveland if he goes to Cleveland. I don't think... No, because they have Baker. That wouldn't happen. But would he follow him to like New York? Would he follow him to Dallas maybe? Probably not Carolina, but like is that a scenario where Josh McDaniels and Tom Brady are a quote unquote package deal? Is it a scenario where he wants to go back? Not go back, does he want to go take over a team like the Chargers, where Phillip Rivers seems to be on his way out? They could need a big boost for their move to a new stadium next year. You get some eyes on the team, get some fans to come out, because obviously, as has been documented by the Chargers players, they have more so a home field disadvantage, as the visiting team normally has more fans than they do at their games, which is not great. But in that scenario, would he want to go to the Chargers? And like I said, you already talked about the Giants, and they got Daniel Jones, probably not. Cowboys, if they don't want to give Dak a deal. I mean, I think they would take Tom Brady over Dak. I mean, I wouldn't due to the age stuff, but like I can see why teams would want to. So it's just like, if he does leave the Patriots, where does he go? And the issue with the Patriots is that it's not only the part of it is him potentially leaving, but even if he doesn't leave, he didn't look that great this year. Now, is that all on him? No. The offensive weapons were putrid outside of Julian Edelman. I mean, they had him, they had Ben Watson, and then that was really it. Sanu didn't really prove to be worth the second-round pick they traded for him. N'Keal Harry was kind of hit or miss. Philip Dorsett was out. Now the lineup, they obviously tried the Antonio Brown thing that lasted a game. It was a good game, but it only lasted a game. They probably could have used him because he was good against the Dolphins before. He would have been nice. Josh Gordon, obviously had to release him. So they were struggling there. Their offensive line, their running game wasn't as good as it was last year. Obviously, like no Gronks, they tried to supplement it with Ben Watson and like guys like Matt Lacoste and other guys that they tried to sprinkle in. Didn't really work. And so I don't want to say all the struggles on the offense were completely Tom Brady's fault because there was some personnel issues outside of him, but there was also throws throughout the season that Tom Brady normally made that he was missing. And it's just like, hey, okay, Father Time is undefeated. We saw it happen with Peyton Manning. That was rough to watch. Again, they won a Super Bowl, but you just saw he was a shell of himself, and you don't want to see Tom Brady go out like that, so you hope he could get out before he gets to that point. But because Tom Brady is so competitive, and his last pass of the season was a pick six, you know he's not going to want to end it like that, so he's going to come back, but then you're just like, is he going to be good when he comes back? And that's kind of where we are. Because even if he comes back to the Patriots, outside of him, they have a lot of free agents, especially on the defensive side. They got Devin McCoy is a free agent, Calvin Noy is a free agent, Jamie Collins is a free agent. All been very good for them this year. Ben Watson's a free agent. You're going to need to replace him. Landon Roberts, a little fullback linebacker hybrid, free agent. Going to need to replace him. Joe Thuney, a guard, going to need to replace him. I mean, they get. I think they get David Andrews back from injury. They get Devlin back, so maybe they don't need a Landon Roberts. You get Gostkowski back from injury, which will be helpful. But then Matthew Slater, their ace special teams guy, he's not going to be back next year. I mean, even though technically he'll be back, Julian Edelman, a year older. If they keep Sanu, a year older. So it's like one of those things where it's like the window, and on top of the fact that their Patriots are aging and they don't have as good of an offense as they have, the other teams around them in the AFC, one, aren't scared of them, and two, are getting better. You have maybe the new young trio. Well, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, but you maybe have the three top young quarterbacks. There it is. In the league, in the AFC, in Deshaun, Patrick Mahomes, and Lamar, all of whom are going to be with their teams for very long times. You have the Bills, who have Josh Allen, who made the playoffs in your own division. You have Miami, who you lost to, who's rebuilding, but clearly Brian Flores is doing something down there that's working because they play hard every week, who's in your own division. You have the Jets, who I think somehow snuck their way to like 7-9. I think they finished off the year pretty well, like 5-2, something like that. So they're, I don't know how good Adam Gase is, but Sam Darnold is hit or miss, but he still has more good moments than bad moments, even though he struggled against the Patriots this year. But so your own division is getting better, your conference is getting better. Across the league, there's a lot of good quarterback play. So it's just like, even if Tom Brady comes back, it's like you no longer have the best quarterback in the AFC. You literally may at best have the fourth. Like that's like best case scenario for the rest of Tom Brady's career, where he's the fourth best quarterback in the AFC, assuming like Lamar keeps on the same track and Deshaun and Mahomes don't like get injured or drop off or something. So I bet you have the fourth best, and then that's a completely different scenario, because before it was like the Brady Belichick, like, oh, they're the two best at their position. That's a tough team to beat. But if that's not there anymore, then that completely changes the equation. As to mention that they already lost to the Chiefs. They lost to the Dolphins too. They lost to the Chiefs, Texans, and Ravens this season. So the young quarterbacks already showed that we aren't afraid of you. We'll take it to you. Doesn't matter where the game is. Like, we'll beat you. They lost to Ryan Tannehill in the playoffs, who threw for like 75 yards in Foxborough, where they lost the week before to Ryan Fitzpatrick on like a last-second touchdown. So it's just like, I think obviously it didn't really work for the Rams last year, but once Nick Foles won that Super Bowl, I think some of the Patriots' mystique started to wear off, and that teams are no longer afraid of them and view them the same, and they know that they can be beaten. And now that they have that, you're facing a scenario where you're aging, getting older, you may be losing players, and whether it's coaches, players, front office guys, your team's starting to break apart. And then, God forbid for the Patriots fans and the organization that Tom Brady leaves in, it's like, all right, then yeah, that's it. And you said Belichick, and I mean, who knows? Maybe Belichick wants to go coach the Giants. Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm throwing it out there. It's possible. Giants trade like their first round pick or whatever they would need to do to get Bill Belichick to coach there. And then now the Patriots they're not nothing, but like they're not as talked about anymore from now on. And just like one of those things where it's like, hey, it's very possible. So I honestly believe that there's a above average chance that the Ryan Tannehill and Ryan Fitzpatrick helped officially end the Patriots dynasty as we knew it. Now, I could say that, and then I could be here, and we could be here next year talking about how Patriots are right back in the playoffs on their way to Super Bowl. Wouldn't shock me. I don't think it would shock you guys. But I think there's a pretty good chance that this might be it. At least for this current iteration of the Patriots. Like, again, Belichick might still be there. They might draft a quarterback, trade for the quarterback, whatever. But the Patriots, as we know it, could very well be done. And that's a crazy thing to think about just because, again, they've been a dominant force in the NFL for 20 years, basically my entire life. They've been the premier team in the league. And just that's something that we may never see again, especially not in football, just because it's too hard to win year to year consistently because there's too many moving parts. And with the salary cap and stuff, it's too hard. So this could very well be the end of the Patriots as we know it, and that's just a crazy thing to think about. So, I mean, maybe you guys agree with me, maybe you don't, but I really do believe that Ryan Tannehill and the Titans and Derrick Henry may have all but officially ended the Patriots. Though, again, we thought that when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, and they won the Super Bowl, and the Patriots did the next year. So, we'll see. But I think there's a pretty good chance, especially if Tom Brady leaves, I think the Patriots, as we knew it, are over for now. Again, teams going through their low periods. They may be back to their prominence sooner than later, but there's a pretty good chance that this is it for this iteration of the Patriots. And if it is, I mean, what a great run. GOAT quarterback, GOAT coach, GOAT tight end, like so many great players throughout the years there. And it's just one of those things where all good things must come to an end. The Patriots are no different, and I think we just saw the end Saturday night. So again, you may agree with me, you may not. But if you don't, if you do agree with me, if you don't agree with me, you want to just talk about it, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Like us on Facebook. We can talk about this then. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss another episode. I'll touch on more about this and other things in coming episodes. So, and also if you want something to be touched on, you can reach out to me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever. You can bounce some topic ideas off me. Again, this is a sports show. I'll talk about anything. It doesn't really matter. But, yep. Now, also remember to subscribe to the podcast. Like I said, make sure you never miss an episode. I am Chris Blades. That is going to do it for my time. I want to thank you guys for listening once again. And peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.